Okay, it is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, and we are in a meeting about racial and economic justice or injustice. Um, and who would like to summarize where we're at this point? Um, well, okay, let me just say that we are the topics that we're talking about are about the idea of going public with these meetings, as an example. Um, I mean, maybe choosing to have a conversation about this in a public way. So that's one thing. And then the other aspects that we talked about are the connection with racial and economic injustice and things like the environment. Um, so, for example, Sue and her Climate Collaboratory are focusing now on the connections between racial injustice and the climate crisis that we're in. And then other people are talking about the possibility of getting into the immediacy of what's going on with the with what's the immediacy of um, police brutality with George Floyd and the other African Americans who have been killed, and many of them brought to public attention through video and all of that, and how this inequality affects people of color. But anyway, other people can say. I'm just sort of bringing up some of these subjects, but maybe other folks might want to say something about where we are at up to this point.
I would like to give a 1-minute summary. Basically, our focus should be to identify the root causes of all kinds of injustice which is happening. And then this group should be providing the probable solutions to the problem for people to, practice those solutions and, see if we can, get the total wider global community to actually apply and test those solutions out and see if those things works to, get this injustice resolved. So idea is not to fight with anybody. Idea is that, every day people are getting oppressed. So we do something about it. And I think based on our experiences, which each one of us has, this kind of a group can actually come up with few solutions for people that people can practice without anything. And I think that is the objective of Me to We society. Me, I can do individually a lot of things, but I cannot do everything. And that's why I need support from everybody. So that's why we are talking about me is nothing, but with we get the power of 1 + 1, 11, and 1 + 1 + 1, 111, and it exponentially multiplies. So the power becomes very huge when we go from me to we society, not in talking, in practice. That's my 2-bit on it, and maybe Sue can add on more to it. She's working on most of the kind of things in Florida. Very similar kind of agenda which you have to unite everybody with all kind of differences. It could be religious, it could be cultural, it could be all kinds of things. Why these separations happen when every one of us are human beings. and why you are not respecting the DNA which has been created individually in each one of them, because we know that we need to respect the DNA. Every individual has a unique DNA, and their DNA is full of terabytes of data. And we should be respecting that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to follow on that. And I'm working with the University of Florida to talk about these things in the community in our part of North Florida. But the idea is we are really looking for the people who are already talking about this and connecting them and amplifying their voices and using the same way that, the Welcome to We show brings this conversation into the media, that we can amplify the voices of groups like this one that are addressing the root causes of not only the climate crisis, but all of the dysfunction that we're struggling with now.
Thank you, Sue. And one of the things that we're talking about is also becoming officially associated with groups that are in the center of these issues. And Gail, did you want to say the name of that group that's youth-led that you're recommending that we start to collaborate with?
The Youth Climate Strike Coalition. Yeah. And also Angel and I in the chat were discussing formalizing your partnership with the Poor People's Campaign. Might be another thing you might like to do.
Exactly. And I'm curious, Gail, if you have any other ideas about what we as a group, or let's say if there's something that you're interested in doing that we could support and promote that is more, let's say, immediately applicable to what's going on in this subject.
I would just say, if you formalize your partnership with these other organizations, I don't know if the Movement for Black Lives themselves have formal partners. I just did a quick search and I didn't see that, but formalizing your relationships with these other groups that I think are going to be planning some pretty concrete actions over the next few months, and just supporting those actions might be a starting place.
That sounds good. Great. And any other thoughts? Did you want to say anything, Sharon, just in general about all of this? Because I think you were making some points before we started recording.
As I think about it, it feels like more activities than, first of all, I just agree with Gail and everyone else who's speaking about discovering other organizations that we can partner with. Just like we invite organizations to partner with us, I think that is a foundation of what we is, and not to reinvent the wheel, but to support what's already out there. I like that Sue's focus causes me to, and I'm not really concretely, haven't thought this all the way through, but I think if we are having some type of conversation about how this particular Black Lives Matter racial injustice connects with all the other 11 campaigns as we move through, that might be a interesting thing to put out to the public, that this very topical issue transcends one part of our collective community. And how we do that, if we do that, that's open for discussion, but that's what this conversation has prompted for me.
Yeah, and that has been my interest as well. And in conversations that I've had with definitely Angel and other coordinators, just how each of these campaigns that we're doing can affect or can be related to and connect with what is really inflaming communities around the US and around the world.
Well, and along those same lines too, I think one of the things that I like about what I see happening with the Youth Climate Coalition is that they had this moment where they officially said the movement for the Black Lives is our focus now. We can't solve any of other problems without focusing on that first. You know, so they put that at the forefront, and they are, you know, the Indigenous Youth Council is one of the primary leaders of this conversation. So that group also was completely steadfast in line with that. And I would say too, like the Poor People's Campaign is another great model to look at because, you know, they have, like we, all of their different areas of focus. And I mean, anyone who's watched Reverend Barber speak, I mean, it's a full-on revolution that we need at this moment to get to where we need to be, you know? So just listening and learning from those groups, I think is great. And then the other, it's not, I guess it is sort of a group, but I mentioned, I think on our last call, but Catherine and Sharon weren't here. The new book out by Valerie Kaur, The Revolutionary Love Movement, is another great movement that I would suggest this group take a look at. So she, in many ways, also is very much in line with we, because she's tying together religious oppression, Christian supremacy, all of these different things, also recognizing and putting the movement for Black Lives at the forefront right now. But she herself is of the Sikh faith, and I described this a little bit, and her experiences during 9/11 and the hate crimes that happened to her community after the fact as just being sort of grouped in as looking like Muslims, looking like terrorists, you know, that kind of thing is sort of her vantage point. But she's really closely connected with Van Jones and his work, and it's his organization that he founded, which I'm blanking out on right now, is the group that's promoting her book groups that she's doing at the moment.
Can you say her name again, her full name?
Valerie, and it's spelled V-A-L-A-R-I-E, last name Kaur, K-A-U-R. But so they through Van Jones's group, and I can look it up really quickly. Dream Corps is his group out of Oakland. And through his group, they're doing these book groups, and it just might be a subset thing that people in We might be interested in doing, maybe forming a book group with them. They're doing a live study where if you join a group now, you're invited to webinars with the author and other people who she invites into the conversation. But it's just really beautiful thinking.
Yeah, not to interrupt you, Gail, but I sent that information to some, maybe even you with the Dream Corps, because I am on a lot of their calls because of the, you know, the prison work that I do, the Dream Corps. And so I think Angel was part of that, going to sign up for the book club. I did it myself because I'm in one with a local Unitarian church, and we're doing the book, You Want to Talk About Race, and we're going through that. So I didn't want to do another book club, but they're really good. Van Jones's group is really good, Dream Corps.
Interesting. And also, Gail, I wanted to point out that we've actually done many broadcasts with the leadership of the Poor People's Campaign, including Liz Theo-Harris. We almost were able to get Reverend Barber on one of our broadcasts, but we didn't. It just didn't work out, the timing. But that's still a possibility going forward, definitely.
Well, and also Valerie and Reverend Barber are working together as well. So all of these dots do connect. So it's. Yeah,
I really like Reverend Barber's approach because he integrates. He definitely integrates politics and the idea of a moral revival. So it's like a broad look at sort of morality, but then very specific with issue areas that he focuses on, especially, of course, economic justice, but also, you know, other things like having to do with freedom, like voting, voter suppression, and, you know, he ties in a lot of different things.
Well, and Valerie she's also got this feminist perspective. So some of you might be familiar with, there was a viral video from 2016 of Valerie on stage with Reverend Barber. And that was where she coined was this the darkness of the tomb or the womb, which kind of became a big thing in the 2016 campaigns, I think, that happened. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I knew Reverend Barber from his Moral Mondays. That's how I think he kind of got into the public eye. I don't know exactly what year he started that, but that was some years ago. So we haven't really heard from Angel and Jana. Do you folks want to say anything? And of course, anyone else?
Well, we've been over in the chat box talking.
Right.
And I think it's important that we focus our efforts on supporting the organizations that are already making a significant impact on the issues. So I really think that, we need to figure out what we can do there and start asking how we can help support these organizations, as well as support like Sue and the Climate Collaboratory for bringing, those different perspectives into the conversation. And with Sue in particular in the environment, the way that I see what she is doing is reconnecting the disconnect. There may be some people in the environmental movement, that could be new and don't quite yet understand that, racial issues is a significant part of, the climate change factors. So yeah, and I think we'll have a few people from our team probably that will, be more of an educator for what we're doing here, and inviting those people that do have that disconnect, that aren't quite yet seeing how specific campaigns connect to the racial inequality and injustice. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about that.
And I just wanted to say I've been putting a lot of organizations and events that are around this topic on our calendar. And for this upcoming week, there are several events.
Can you speak up a little bit, Jana? It's a little hard for folks to hear you.
Well, I'm talking as loud as I can, but I put it in the chat that I put a lot of these organizations that are doing similar work that are on our calendar, and I've been contacting them when I put the events on the calendar, and like the one that's coming out with Boston Faith and Justice Network, who have expressed interest in us also. So anyway, a lot of stuff going on there. People already having the conversations. I'm signing up to join the conversations, and just gonna keep up my effort to try to connect some sort of dots together.
Well, unfortunately you're breaking up a bit, Jana. We heard everything up until the last couple of sentences. Oh well. It's a weird signal issue. So where do we go from here? I mean, we have a lot of groups we can collaborate with. That's always great. do we want to consider this idea of taking one of these meetings or, doing it like a live conversation, and even with the possibility of having people ask questions, and interact with them in a live setting? Is that something that we want to do? Would that be productive or strategically useful, or, other things? Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Well, I defer to Catherine because we've been talking about doing a project that might work right into what you're talking about.
Oh, no, you can go ahead and say that, talk about that. I wasn't going to talk about that. I had something else to say. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Catherine and I have been talking about going to each of the coordinators for the different themes for 11 days and talking with them about this issue in the context of their theme, and coming up with something that we can provide on that day that would connect the theme and racism.
That sounds great.
And so I'm thinking, if you want to do that as a larger conversation than just the two of us, that might be wonderful.
Well, that would be a larger conversation. I mean, in other words, you're talking about like a public broadcast on
I'm
each
talking about, yeah, that this
on-
group would address each theme so that we can broadcast it during the 11 days.
Right. So it wouldn't necessarily be everyone on this or in this group on each day, but it would be, I guess, led by the coordinators of each of the themes, and with whoever wants to be part of that conversation.
Yes.
That sounds interesting. And Angel, are you kind of making note of that? Because that's maybe something that you could help, connect with the coordinators about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. And so, yeah, go ahead, Catherine. What were you thinking?
Okay, so no, I just wanted to give my sense overall about where I see myself with this group.
Mhm.
And I think that I'm feeling a desire to pull less towards connecting with other groups. I mean, I don't mind doing that. And from the perspective of eliminating and broadcasting what everyone is doing, I'm very much want to do that. But in terms of these issues of racial justice and racism, I'm more inclined to want to lean towards the personal in that regard, that I'm less concerned about what the society does as a whole, and I'm more concerned about how people are individually impacted just in general. So I'm more concerned about how kids or young people are connecting to who they are as beings, and how that changes from the perspective of understanding, the histories, where they come from, the histories of racism, more as it personally impacts and empowers people. So that's where I see myself leaning personally, rather than connecting with different groups. I mean, I think connecting with groups is great, and everybody should do that. But I personally would rather connect with individuals.
So, and how would you want to connect with them? In other words, have them, for example, as guests on your show and go into in-depth, conversation about, what's been happening in their lives.
Possibly, or healers, educators, people who are actually working in the community, helping people. So I saw a podcast recently of this guy who's working to empower foster care, children in foster care, helping them to move through stages of life, because because they're actually missing out on all the fundamental things that this movement is addressing. So the movement is addressing changing the systems, but there's still a lot of people being left behind because the systems haven't changed. So my concern is more for those people who ultimately have been left behind and will be left behind while everyone's doing their political work. So yeah, I'm concerned with young people who are experiencing a lot of anger and are being sort of drawn into this violent faction of the movement. I would like to see, you know, so I'm just more interested in individual outcomes. So I'm thinking in terms of, I don't know what that looks like yet, but that's what I'm imagining towards the how to impact individual outcomes rather than movement politics. I think I'm just too old for movement politics. I've seen them come and go my whole life. They don't change a lot of things for people on the ground, and that's more what I'm interested in.
Yeah. So
I actually think what Catherine's talking about doing would serve dual purposes, because I think on your own, with your goals for doing it, that right there is super important. I also think that those stories are super important to changing the narrative and helping people to understand the bigger movement picture. So, I mean, I think it's actually, I think it would be achieving both if you figure out how you'd like to do that. But. Your microphone wasn't on, Catherine.
Oh, I just saw the message that said teach-ins and workshops. So that's kind of, yeah, a good way to go.
yeah, I like that. Do you think something like that, or would you be interested in putting something like that together for 11 days?
Possibly, yes. Yeah. Maybe not 11, but yeah, somewhere in there.
Well, like, yeah, on one of those 11 days. That sounds good. And, you know, you are doing work with regard to health. So individual health, I mean, this certainly is part of it, and individual health connecting to societal health. So that, I mean, that's one idea. But of course, as we know, this subject can apply to any of those areas. But I'm just mentioning, since you're kind of connected and coordinating the health campaign. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's where I feel my energy drawn. So that's what I will probably most inclined to do, rather than the big picture, the focusing somehow.
Mm-hmm. Right, and Angel is putting in the chat here this concept for having 3 people taking the lead on each of the campaigns. So each person would really kind of focus in the area that they're most interested in. So, so teach-ins and workshops could be something that you focus on, whereas someone else might, you know, be the person that works on outreach to other organizations and collaboration, that kind of thing. So we get it all kind of happening at the same time. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, this sounds good. Any other thoughts before we call it whatever it is, an afternoon, a morning, or an evening for Mufadal?
I just had a question for Catherine. Catherine, I know you mentioned specifically the foster care system. Are you thinking of also sort of people who have been affected by incarceration and other types of racial injustice?
Yeah, I'm sort of open to all of that, but I'm just I haven't. I'm just thinking it now, so I haven't gotten it very granular, but yeah, definitely thinking in terms of foster care, social services, prisons, but also youth impacted by those systems. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be in prison, your parents could be in prison, and how does that impact you, kind of thing. And, sort of looking for systems and ways to be restorative to those situations rather than waiting for some civil rights, law to be enacted that isn't going to do much in the end. That's kind of my.
Yes, Michelle.
So Catherine, I may be able to help you that because I'm a foster adoptive parent, and so I work with the youth, and my big thing is about youth that are aging out of the system with no safety net, and they end up homeless, and then they end up going and doing something that may be criminal, which they would not be doing if they were having a home, and setting up ways of creating whether villages or communities so that they're not ending up doing something that will end up getting them up into the prison. So it's trying to stop that prison pipeline. So
Yeah, and a lot of them, I understand, are aging out very young, like 16.
Yes.
And expected to be able to live on their own, and it's impossible.
And they have no tools for it, and they have no support, and it's almost like going out, leaving the prison system, which I, have been doing for over 25 years, is that they're just given their bag and they're off, and there's no, safety net for them either, and then they have to get a job. There's just so much. So, so please, we can get together and do it, because I can give you some organizations of foster care organizations that are helping and stuff. So just reach out.
And Sharon, I think you're working in some of these areas too, with your family coaching and all of that stuff, right?
Yes, I don't particularly. I think Michelle's more of an expert on the foster care system. I don't interact with those wonderful families much at all. Prisons, yes, is very important to me. So yeah, I don't know how that fits in or helps, but I'm just really observing right now.
And you're good at observing.
Also, I'm just reading, I'm sure most of you have probably read already, the new Jim Crow, but I don't know if you've read the updated 10th anniversary edition, because the intro to that I found super interesting, getting into the whole, she talks a lot about how our incarceration system is now turning more toward this home monitoring system kind of thing. It's just, everything gets so scary, the roads we go down when we start really looking into how these systems are working. But those people experiencing that as well, like these monitoring systems, and I don't know, there's so many places you could go with this conversation.
Right, exactly. And I know there's this sort of, this conversation about, some people are thinking, oh, well, this is better, if people have ankle monitors or whatever, that's better than being locked up in jail. But but then other people say that to do this sort of surveillance of people just expands the whole the whole prison system. It takes it outside of the walls of the, anyway. It's a very current conversation. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Gail.
Yeah, and all these people that are targeted and never charged, and yet their whole life is ruined, for just being profiled. I mean, it's just like, there's so much.
Right, and that gets also into this whole software about facial recognition that Facebook and some of the other companies are using, right? And then they're giving that technology to law enforcement and that kind of thing. And one of the aspects of that that has been written about lately a lot is how it falls down, it breaks down, it's not even accurate with people of color. So that people are being picked up
I guess we
using the
all still look
technology.
alike.
Yeah, exactly. Because guess who wrote the programs, right? And it's also a male-dominated field as well. So,
But the foster care system is a system where the parents are guilty until proven innocent, and in the interim, the children are removed and trauma, and then if they're found innocent and the children go, the whole family has been traumatized over that. And when I was a foster parent, I worked with the families, and Dylan, my youngest, who I've adopted 3, he goes and sees his family, and their family comes to me, and Isaac and Keisha's mother was in prison, and I would take them to go visit her. So I worked with the families, and they all came to my house, and because I really feel that we should be healing families and not tearing them apart, and there's got to be a way that we can somehow go in there and lift them up to a point where, that they can get and learn to take care of their own, their families, so that they're not torn apart, because it's this whole vicious cycle that the family unit is torn apart, and that's the basis of everything, because families should be together. So just my thoughts.
And again, this is really how it's all one big broken system, I mean, you can't, yes, you want to hear the individual stories of the different people hurt by different parts of the system, but the truth is, if you fish, you're going to see how it's all connected, right? And it's
all interconnected, just like we're all interconnected. I mean, when one is hurting, we're all hurting.
But we're all hurting.
We can lift ourselves up, then so again, it's like united we stand, divided we fall. And I just think that we're here not to judge, but to sort of support everybody, because everybody's on a different way. And I heard Pat McCabe on Tree Sisters, and she was talking about the native ways and of going back. And it's such a beautiful way. She said, we're all born in beauty. We are beauty. And along the way, some of us lose the beauty path, but it's up to our community, no matter what we have done, to bring us back into beauty. And I can just see that if somebody's losing their way, no matter what they've done, if we as a community sung them back into beauty, and then in turn we'll be singing ourselves back into beauty, and that way we can sort of just make it maybe a better place of coming from love and coming from the heart instead of the mind and judging. So
well, and I think too, it's really important to remember that everybody's harmed by this system, but people are harmed disproportionately, right? Some people
right.
are.
No, I understand that. I'm Native American, and I've got I have an African. My son is, Black Native American, and he was arrested 3 times with Occupy. He's been stopped, and the sad thing that I didn't do is that I didn't prepare him, because I was thinking, I loved him, and so I didn't prepare him for when he went out into the world, that there's this, society that may just look at him and say, oh, you're walking down the street, you got to be careful. And I didn't, and I wish that I had raised him in a little bit more education on what could happen when he's out there. And so it really harmed him, in a way that I feel I regret that I didn't have the tools for that. So
yeah, that's like the conversation, in quotes, that parents have with their
sad
kids
conversation.
about.
And I never even gave it any thought, because his dad passed in 2006, and he never had it, the conversation. So it's, it's very
And I
sad.
mean specifically about like interacting with police. But it's really in general, like you're saying, but I mean, the conversation about, what, how to deal with police.
Yeah, I think most Black children who grow up in Black families have that conversation before the first day of kindergarten.
Yeah.
We do.
Yep. You have to. I mean, it's, Unbelievable. Sue, you were going to say something?
Oh, it seems almost silly, but when I hear this conversation, I'm always coming up with a song. There's a song for that. And as I go through the 11 days, I will be using music as almost a healing balm, is the way I feel like. It just uplifts souls and helps. It helps.
Well, I love that idea from Michelle about singing people back into beauty. That's a very interesting concept.
Well, and I think the flip side to the healing love idea is to be recognizing the extent to which our society actually teaches hate, you know?
Right.
And that hate, I think, is, you know, we see it harm, we do see that harm everyone, right? From even a kindergartner in an all-white kindergarten class experiences, we see, you know, bullying happen even in those situations because of the way we compare each other, you know? And I think to some degree it's that same hate as James Baldwin talks about, you know, that is at the heart of things like mass school shootings that in many cases have been a white perpetrator, but usually the victim of bullying, you know, and that same sort of like cycle of hate that comes from our capitalist comparative society, you know, that began with teaching settlers to hate Native Americans, you know, and the same sort of hate that allowed slavery to happen in an acceptable format, you know, it's like that, it's all one big thing too, but just sort of recognizing the extent to which it's actually taught, you know.
Exactly.
It runs deep, it's collective, and it's definitely traumatizing, and we have a lot of work to do in order to undo all of that has been done. And we can't expect it overnight because look how long it has taken us to get to the point where we are now. And but we at least we have, you know, there's a beginning, and if we can keep moving forward and not just toss it under the rug like it has been, you know, over the years, that we, at least our children and our grandchildren will have a chance, and hopefully be able to live it, you know, at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think this too is where tying it back, I think staying in focus too at some level with the climate environmental conversation helps to keep the urgency on, you know, because we are now facing a finite time for humans to keep existing on this planet if we don't start really fixing the roots of these problems. You know, we can't, as long as we think it's okay to keep trashing the water for those people or the air for those people, we're ultimately ruining everything, you know?
Exactly. So I see we're at the end of the time that we kind of allotted for this. We could keep going, but is this time okay a week from today? I mean, just for the folks who are on this call right now. And then
My daughter is actually having surgery on Tuesday next week, so I probably will not be able to tune in next
good luck.
week.
Okay.
Good luck with that.
All right, it seems okay for me.
Well, why don't we see if we figure out another time? I mean, Gail, I mean, all of us, it would be nice if we can, you know.
I would say my week next week, she's having spinal surgery and it's going to be a pretty
Wow.
intense week. So I don't know that I'm
Forget
going
it.
to be able to tune in at any point next week.
I
but-
see. Okay. Forget it. Well, good luck. I hope that all works out in a positive way for your daughter.
Absolutely. Good luck to her.
How old is she?
She's 14. It's scoliosis. So.
Oh my God. Wow. Good luck with that. So, well, with everyone
I'm
else,
available.
say it again.
I'm available if you choose to have it at this time.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And everybody else, Catherine, good? Angel and Mufadal?
I'm
And-
good.
And maybe we can see if Shannon will
Yeah,
join
Rick,
us.
I'm fine with 1 p.m. time, okay, Tuesday.
Okay, 1 p.m. New York time. Okay, so that's the 28th. And thank you. It looks like we're making progress. We have a lot of interesting ideas and we're starting to move on them. And very interesting conversation as well. And we're starting to record them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all and have a great rest of the day. I don't know if you'll be able to join on the show tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern, but if you can, that would be great. I mean, you know, watch it on Facebook or whatever. And I'll see you later, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. It's all about we. Thank you.
Bye-bye.